안녕하세요 여러분, 제 이름은 제시입니다. 이 채널은 조선 영화 리뷰입니다. 만나서 반갑습니다. Jesse here, this time with another fan-requested video. Today we're going to be looking at 청춘요, known in English as O Youth. Directed by Jong and written by Ri Il-chol, O Youth was released in 1994 in North Korea. This film is somewhat popular among North Korean enthusiasts because it's a comedy, which for some reason people believe to be rare in North Korean cinema. They're not. Urban Girl Comes to Get Married, The Favorite Young Man, and Our Fragrance are all just a few examples of comedies in North Korean cinema. In fact, did you know that the longest running comedy show in history is a North Korean television show called It's So Funny, which has run continuously since the 1970s? But more on that in another video. As for O Youth, this is another light-hearted, everything is going great kind of film released in the mid-1990s, right when the famine was bulldozing the population into oblivion outside of Pyongyang. Yet, as this film would have it, it's almost as if the famine never even happened. I feel like we're running into a theme here with these movies. The film begins with a panoramic view of a sports complex in Pyongyang accompanied by a catchy tune. As the scene shifts, we hear the monologue of the father essentially telling us the premise of the movie before it even starts. In this monologue, he talks about his 5 daughters, all of whom are athletes. There's Seok, the tomboyish basketball player, Oh-ok, the swimmer, who is also the youngest, Eok, the weightlifter, Naeok, the gymnast, and finally Il-ok, the soccer, the football player for all you non-Moonlanders out there. He then talks about his one and only son, and their family's desire to find him a proper wife. Soon after this monologue, we're taken to the kitchen where the mother is butchering a cantaloupe while father peels potatoes in the living room during a hot summer day in Pyongyang. And let me tell you, if you have never been to Korea in the summer, holy shit, Korean summers are awful. The film tries its hand with situational humor right out of the gate as the husband complains with his wife about peeling so many potatoes for his daughters, who are all on their way home from their dorms. Gotta make sure there's always a banquet of food shown at least once in these movies. He continues to talk with his wife about how proud he is of his daughters, whom are all well known throughout Pyongyang for their skills in their specific sport. The mother chastises him for always boasting about their daughters, however, while he should be finding a suitable wife for his son, whose name is Kiho. Their son, Kiho, is a historian, currently working on his thesis for his doctorate. He, like his mother, also wants to find a girl to marry, feeling like he's already too old to be single, which honestly I could believe. This guy looks like he's approaching 40, and it looks at least 10 years older than their next oldest child. I mean, how the fuck old were his parents when they had him? 10? Their innocent argument is interrupted by 2 rings from the doorbell, indicating their second-born, Eok, is at the door, whom promptly scoops her father up when she enters the home. After that, we hear 3 doorbell rings, signaling their third child, Seok, who begins pelting her parents with watermelons. Next comes 1 ring, and yeah, this goes on for a while. I love how, even the mother is like, shut the fuck up already after, the third child comes home. With the whole family together, they all sit down for a literal banquet and enjoy some precious family time together. While eating, the daughters reveal their secret plan with their mother and produce 5 photographs of women they'd chosen to marry for Kiho. The mother, however, rejects them all as they've all chosen athletes, while the mother wants a non-athletic submissive girl for Kiho. Their mother is a conservative woman who doesn't fully accept her daughter's careers as athletes, firmly believing instead that women are supposed to be docile while spending time at home, earning scorn from all of her 5 daughters who reject that assertion completely. In the next scene, we're introduced to Eun-gyung, who is Naeok's Taekwondo instructor. Eun-gyung makes her way to the library the following day to read about the history of Taekwondo in preparation for her upcoming match. It just so happens that the book she checks out is exactly the one that Kiho was planning to check out. The librarian suggests that he introduce himself to her, albeit he is too nervous and decides to leave. After Eun-gyung learns of this, she introduces herself to him and they have a conversation. Eun-gyung apologizes for checking out the book he chose and asks if he can teach her about Taekwondo during the Koryo period, an offer which Kiho happily obliges. While this is happening, a woman from another prominent family approaches our mother and asks if she's willing to marry her third daughter, Seok, to a man 3 years her senior. The man is described as a 25-year-old handsome, intelligent, and also owns a Mercedes-Benz. Capitalist heresy! An offer of which, after some additional matchmaking, she agrees. At the home, we see the girls watching Seok's basketball highlights with their father, who offers them some advice on sports. Seok brings up the question of whether or not they will be able to marry due to the fact that they're all athletes. Their father laughs off their worries, saying that their mother is just old-fashioned. It's here that we see the tone dramatically change as the propaganda segment sets in. The camera subtly focusing on the father, while at the same time making sure we see the girls as they all listen intently to his lecturing about how athletes bring honor to the country, and in doing so are rewarded with lavish houses and national fame. The technique is subtle but effective propaganda, focusing on the father as the center of attention while still conveying the unwavering attention of the girls. The scene immediately shifts back to its previous playful tone as the father suggests they find other ways to change their mother's mind. In what I assume must be unintentional irony, the youngest girl actually recommends voting as the girls would outvote their mother and father. Their father dismisses the idea, however, claiming that voting wouldn't work as their mother is like a dictator. I mean, nothing like unintentionally self-aware humor in North Korea. The girls secretly conspire with her father to win their mother's heart by performing well in front of a journalist who is writing an article on their family. Meanwhile, the mother pulls Seok to the side to talk with her about the marriage proposal. Seok outright rejects the offer, however, as she feels she is too young to be married. We rejoin our Taekwondo history duo in the midst of a roller coaster ride while Kiho lectures Eun-gyung about ancient Taekwondo during the early Three Kingdoms period in Goguryeo. He goes on to claim that Korean martial arts is the oldest in the world. This is incorrect, however, as there is evidence of martial arts throughout the world that predates written history, making his claims impossible to verify. Taekwondo isn't even the oldest martial art that's still practiced. That honor goes to Kalare Payatu. Leaving the roller coaster ride and walking to a park, Kiho attempts to demonstrate a strike using a Taekwondo match against an American vampire. Completely unaware that she's a Taekwondo instructor, his attempt at impressing her fails when he strikes a tree and immediately regrets it as he injures his hand. His attempt to act uninjured nonetheless makes Eun-gyung laugh. He then goes on to say that the knife hand strike originated with Korean martial arts, another demonstrably untrue claim, and says that North Korea must win the upcoming World Taekwondo match, as it will be invaluable to his thesis. How? What exactly is his thesis on? How Koreans are naturally better at Taekwondo because it's a Korean martial art? Reminds me of Eva Justin's thesis on racial biology of gypsy children during the Third Reich, if anything. Later on, Kiho tells his mother about his day with Eun-gyung, who he incorrectly describes as an embroidery girl, being unaware that she is also an athlete. His mother is enthralled by the prospect of him marrying a feminine woman and wants to meet her immediately. Together, they travel to the library where Kiho points her out to his mother. His mother calls her beautiful and instantly approves of her. Before they can meet her, however, their father pulls up in a van and hurries them inside as they are due for an interview with a reporter at the Pyongyang sports complex.
여보, 뭘 하고 있어? 당신도 빨리 타.
여보, 우리 지금...
They arrive, and the local guide takes them on a tour while giving a speech about how noble Kim Jong-il is for ordering the development of this complex 10 years ago, so that they, the youth, could inspire and honor the nation for generations to come. It's interesting to note that while the instructor is giving this tour, everybody else is kind of silent and almost with their head down, kind of like in a Christian church service if you've ever been to one. Really gives you an idea of how ordinary North Koreans honestly view their leader. It's almost as though Kim Jong-il, Kim Il-sung are God to them. The group then goes on to see their daughter Seok play a competitive game of basketball. I wonder if they know that basketball is an American sport. They then observe their other daughters performing their sports before they're taken to the Sulsan Hotel, which is a real place, by the way, and if you look up the reviews online, you can actually see many of the real-life locations that this film was shot in, including the soccer field where Il-ok is subsequently seen playing. After the interview, the girls treat their parents to a lavish meal at the top of Sulsan Hotel. I promise I'm not being sponsored by the hotel, guys. Their mother congratulates the girls on all of their hard work and dedication to their sports. She laments that she wishes she could have played sports if she were young again. Seeing a change of heart in their mother's Confucian point of view, they ask if Kiho can marry an athlete after all. In a complete 180, however, their mother refuses, saying that although their skills are impressive, they've yet to honor the country, so it's a hard pass from Omani, who is now upset for no conceivable reason and storms off.
아니.
The next day, we see Eun-kyung donned in full Taekwondo attire teaching a class to a patriotic musical tune, which is called Look at Us, if you're curious. Upon the class ending, she wears her normal attire and leaves the building, but is met by Ki-ho's mother, who has been waiting for her behind a tree. Eun-kyung is visibly disturbed by the woman and asks who she is. She introduces herself as Ki-ho's mom and cuts straight to the point of wanting her to be her daughter-in-law because she's an embroidery girl. When Eun-kyung attempts to explain that she isn't actually in embroidery, the mother just completely cuts her off. The mother then tells her to meet her son one last time the following day at 6, and more or less gives Eun-kyung no say in the matter. During their date, Ki-ho apologizes for his mother's brash behavior, and all seems well until Rain forces them to take refuge under some trees. Eun-kyung continues to thank him as she was offered to present a lecture on Taekwondo thanks to the knowledge he gave her. Suddenly, however, lightning strikes and frightens Eun-kyung, causing her to embrace Ki-ho out of fear, and once realizing this, she runs off in embarrassment. Talk about Confucianism. He finds Eun-kyung and they take refuge under a Korean pillar until the rain subsides, after which he decides to demonstrate the power of Taekwondo's leg strength by kicking a nearby tree, causing further injury to himself and amusement to Eun-kyung. He then goes on to tell her that the headbutt was invented in Korea as well, which is complete utter nonsense. Jesus Christ, this guy's a historian like Joseph Stalin is a humanitarian. We then get to see Ki-ho's mother run into her friend while out of town. During their conversation, her friend jokes about how she should be careful about her son dating a taekwondoist. This draws immediate ire from our mother, as she is still under the assumption that Eun-kyung is an embroiderist. Her friend reinforces her statement and repeats that Eun-kyung is the best taekwondoist in Pyongyang.
아니, 아들이 태권도 촌이하고 딱 붙어 다닌 걸 모르시오?
Ki-ho's mother, unable to believe this, initially assumes that Ki-ho is secretly dating two women at the same time and yells at him to tell the truth. Ki-ho reaffirms that he's never met a taekwondoist, so his mother sets out to find Eun-kyung and settle this once and for all. When she meets Eun-kyung, however, she does precisely the opposite and refuses to let her explain once again, instead choosing to interrupt her and lament how she doesn't want another athlete as a part of her family, all while praising Eun-kyung as an embroiderist. All the while, Eun-kyung, realizing that her mother-in-law would never accept her once she learns the truth, apologizes to her for not being the woman she wants and quickly runs off. Later on, Naeok goes to visit Eun-kyung at her house. Naeok apologizes to Eun-kyung for stealing a picture of her and said she only wanted her to be her sister-in-law, but says she can't because her brother and mother don't like athletes. This comes to a surprise as Eun-kyung explains her exact same situation with a historian. The two compare side notes and realizing they are talking about the same person, Ki-ho.
그게 은경언니였댔구나. 그 사람이 바로 너희 오빠였댔구나. 은경언니.
The next day, their father gathers the girls together upon learning the truth about Eun-kyung. There, he hatches yet another plan to get his son to like sportswomen. Only this time, it's by hiring 3 people to fight Eun-kyung, forcing her to use her taekwondo to defend herself while at the same time swooning Ki-ho. Talk about fucking dedication, I'll give him that. The 3 men approach Eun-kyung and Ki-ho at night. They quickly surround the two and push Ki-ho into the river. Fearing for her and Ki-ho's life, Eun-kyung easily dispatches all 3 of the men, sending them woundedly into the night. All the while in full display of Ki-ho, who watches in utter disbelief. Eun-kyung apologizes to Ki-ho for leading him to believe that she was an embroidery student all this time. She reveals that she knows that he and his mother don't like athletes and says that it's the last time that they should meet. Ki-ho, however, isn't driven away at all, and begs for her not to leave and to give him one last chance, saying that his mother would grow to love her if she had seen Eun-kyung fight like that. Eun-kyung eventually agrees to give it one last shot. In the next scene, we see the dad with the girls badly pretending to laugh genuinely at a scene from a cartoon that couldn't possibly be described as humorous. Mother draws Seok into the kitchen where she tells her that her blind date is coming over for dinner and to be ready. Seok is mortified by this and runs crying to her father. Her father tells her mother not to force Seok or any of their daughters into marriage until they're ready. Their mother unwillingly relents, replying that she'll live with a nice, calm daughter-in-law who isn't an athlete. Right after saying that, however, Kiho arrives to ask her about accepting a Taekwondo girl instead of an embroidery girl, saying that it should be her heart that matters, not her job. His mother scoffs at the idea, and enlists Naeok to spy on Eungyung and Kiho to see if she's really a Taekwondoist. Naeok happily obliges, obviously already knowing the latter is true. The next scene in what is one of the most disturbing and heart-wrenching scenes in all of North Korean film, but not for the reason you might think. Eungyung and Kiho meet along the Taedong River. Eungyung returns Kiho's thesis that he let her borrow, saying that it was of great use to her presentation. Now, instead of a tender romantic moment between the two, Kiho asks if there was anything he could improve on. Eungyung goes full North Korea and says that his thesis fails to accurately portray Korea as a great nation, adding that Taekwondo didn't protect Korea or make Korea great. Rather, it was Kim Il-sung who made Korea great, and he should receive credit for making Taekwondo an international sport, which I fail to see how it's possible that this fat diabetic tyrant could be responsible for anything except for economic freefall, political oppression, and mass starvation, but okay. Eungyung suggests he add the words, "soul of Kim Il-sung's nation" to his thesis, to which Kiho happily obliges, saying that he'll dedicate the entire preface to Kim Il-sung, adding that Korea isn't great because Taekwondo is Korean, it's because they have a great leader like Kim Il-sung. Eungyung thanks him one last time and bids him farewell. Kiho stops her from leaving and says that he wants to see her again. When Eungyung replies that he doesn't like athletes, he declares that he changed his mind and that he's in love with her and he wants to be with her. Now that the cat is out of the bag, do we get a hug? Does he kiss her? No! The setup, the sexual tension, the delivery were all perfect, everything building up to what would be at least a kiss in any other movie made in any other normal country in the world. Even her body language is screaming, "Kiss me!" But no, he doesn't kiss her or even hold her hand. She just walks off into the night as he looks on puzzled and confused, as he himself probably wants to kiss her because that's what he would have done if this was a real-life situation. But oh no, heaven forbid we include any semblance of reality in these films, no. Instead we get black belt Kim Il-sung getting all of the affection. Naeok eventually reports back to her mother that Kiho is going to meet Eungyung at the Taekwondo hall where a world championship is about to take place. When her mother learns of this, she goes to the hall dressed in her traditional Choson and sits by her son, waiting for his Taekwondoist girlfriend to sit down. When a random woman sits down next to Kiho, our mother rapidly asks the girl why she's dating with her son when he's already dating a nice embroidery girl. The woman, who has absolutely no idea who this old lady or Kiho is or what she's talking about, calls her insane. It's then we see Eungyung enter the stage, much to the jaw-dropping shock of the mother, who is unable to believe that this sweet, kind-hearted woman, whom she'd thought was a simple dressmaker, turned out to be the best Taekwondoist in North Korea, who would represent the DPRK in the championship against several other countries including Ireland, Brazil, and Argentina. Eungyung eventually spars with a foreign Taekwondo practitioner, who despite landing several blows early on due to Eungyung's passivity, Kiho's mother roots and cheers for Eungyung the entire way, however, and the foreigner ultimately loses when Eungyung regains her composture and goes on the offensive. Having won first place, she's awarded with 2 gold medals and a trophy, and stands tall atop the podium as the national anthem of the DPRK plays. Neither Eungyung or Kiho's mother can fight back tears as the flag of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea hangs proudly over the competitors. Kiho's mother, after 10 years of harboring negative opinions about athletes, finally realizes that they too can honor the country in ways that no one else can. The shining flag of socialism flying proudly over the stadium signifies the death of our mother's negative feelings towards athletes. Eungyung is greeted as a hero by the crowd outside the stadium. A BBC reporter asks her for her thoughts after winning the match. Without skipping a beat, she thanks Kim Il-sung for making it possible for her to learn Taekwondo, saying that only in their great socialist country could she be able to follow her dreams of becoming an athlete. All the while, the reporter is probably thinking, this bitch is fucking nuts. The mother greets Eun-gyung and quickly embraces her, signifying her acceptance of Eun-gyung in the family. After the match, we see our mother telling all of her daughters that she's changed her mind, that all of them must honor the country like Eun-gyung before getting married, and the film ends with a father's epilogue about respecting the nation's athletes who dedicate their entire youth to bring fame and glory to the country.
이 하나의 생각으로 마음들이 꼭 합쳐졌답니다.
별처럼 나라 청춘이요 내 조국의 미래와 함께 깨끗한 충성을 바쳐가며 우리 한생 살리라 온 세상에 펼쳐가자 내 나라 내 조국을 장군님의 품에 안겨 우리 청춘 빛내자.
Alright, so this movie was indeed different than every other movie I've reviewed. I must say the premise is certainly unique. Having 6 children is not ordinary for any East Asian country, but especially not for North Korea. Korea Daddy's pullout game must have been super weak. It is worth mentioning that this movie does actually make an attempt at being funny in a way that ordinary people can actually understand. I didn't think Urban Girl Comes to Get Married was funny in the slightest, nor did I see really any attempt to be, despite being a comedy. So I can see why people think that this is one of the only comedies in the DPRK, because it's the only comedy that actually tries to be funny in a way that somewhat succeeds, even though it may come off as extremely corny to Western audiences. One scene that still catches my interest is when the girls are talking about outvoting their mother to decide who Ki-ho can marry, when their father dismisses their idea by describing their mother as a dictator. Now there are 3 logical reasons for this joke existing. That A, the director had a serious pair and just decided fuck it and go for it. B, that the North Koreans involved genuinely believe that they're living in a true democratic republic with fair elections. Either that, or state writers want people to think that, hence the inclusion of the joke. Regardless, it was pretty interesting to see nonetheless. The central theme of the movie is not unlike any other Korean film, being that you should honor your country before anything else, including marriage. What's interesting is that the film attempts to challenge traditional Confucian beliefs about what an ideal woman should be. In the film, our mother, who has traditional beliefs about gender roles, is seen as the antagonist, whereas the rest of the family, and especially Eun-gyung, whom hold more progressive values about women, are seen as heroes. The film makes the assertion that athletes aren't any less valuable to a society just because they don't perform traditional roles or work regular jobs, and that it is every bit as possible to serve the country as a sportsman, as they bring fame, fortune, and honor to the country. And I believe that's a message we can all get behind. I mean, just look at the Olympics, for example. Overall, I commend the film for its message about gender equality. While in no way do I believe that everyone holds a progressive view of women in North Korea, remember, this is a propaganda film, it is nice to see the Confucian way of thinking in Korea be challenged for once, even if it's by socialism. As for our characters, they're mostly static in that their personalities don't really change, besides the mother's. The father is the typical goofy dad role who secretly conspires with his daughters to change his wife's perception of athletes. The daughters themselves are practically all the same character, just portrayed by different people. Like seriously, they all behave the exact same way, they just happen to play different sports. They are supporting roles, however, so it's to be expected that they don't get much development at all. The mother serves as the primary antagonist who represents the old way of thinking in Korean society. Strong in her convictions, she tries her best to make sure her son ends up with a feminine woman, even going out of her way to spy on his date and nearly assault a woman who he suspects is secretly seeing Ki-ho. Despite her outdated views of society, she only has her son's best interests at heart, and it's hard to knock her for that, especially since she does end up changing her mind at the end of it all. As for Ki-ho, this isn't necessarily an attack on his character, but I believe they casted someone who at least looks far too old for the role. Seriously, this guy looks like he's 45 when he's supposed to be portraying a 30-year-old. It is North Korea though, so he very well may be 30 but looks 45 because North Korean men tend to smoke like burning buildings. Other than that, he's an average character who makes ridiculously false claims about Taekwondo, it being the oldest martial art and certain moves originating with it. As a historian myself, it is incredibly unethical to alter history to fit a nationalistic perspective, and extremely unethical just to make shit up, even if it's just for a movie, because I find Young, I don't have much to say about her because she's really just your average North Korean girl, shy, calm, flawless, and a perfect mouthpiece for Juche propaganda, and Kim Il-sung boasting. She also has really broad shoulders, which admittedly is pretty sexy. I'm also no practitioner of Taekwondo or any martial art for that matter, but her actress doesn't look all that skilled. Nonetheless, she is our film's heroine who heroically smashes the concept of women being helpless damsels in distress, so that's certainly a characteristic worth pointing out. I mentioned before the scene where Eun-gyung and Ki-ho meet along the Taedong River was heartbreaking. Allow me to explain what I meant. I hate to appeal to emotion, but watching this scene just really made me feel so bad for the people living in this country. Here we see a perfectly set up moment that in any other movie would result in the two finally confessing how they feel about each other. As I said before, the setup, the tension, the dialogue leading up to what would be a romantic encounter is all perfect. But just as we expect that to happen, we're reminded that this is a North Korean movie, and we're given a totally forced, unnatural, ridiculous statement about Kim Il-sung making Korea great and how he deserves credit in his thesis. Watching this scene reminded me of the dark reality that is ever present in this country, that people can't even watch a movie without the omnipresent boot of totalitarianism smashing what little human elements the director could ever hope to show in these films. And that's really the worst part about watching these movies, not because they're bad or poorly made, but just watching these otherwise talented actors being forced to say this garbage breaks my heart. This is a comedy, which was supposed to make me laugh, but instead leaves me with a sour taste in my mouth and a lump in my chest as I mourn for those who are still held hostage by this god-forsaken regime. That's not to say that this film is bad, however. It's still an enjoyable film with excellent production values and offers an interesting insight into North Korean society from different viewpoints. It's just worth noting here that there is a heavy dose of propaganda with this one. So with that, if you're interested in a light-hearted comedy with both a confusion and socialist take on modern issues like gender roles, then look no further than O Youth. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.